What's up, friends? Welcome back to another episode of NFT 365. And as you might have noticed, over the last 6 months, I've had kind of an aha, right? An aha that I was pretty, let's just say, art ignorant would be the best way that I could explain what I was, not only from an artist's perspective, but also just like my appreciation for art. And if I had to give a compliment or something to Web3 in the realm of like how it's helped me as just as a human, one of the things is actually just the idea that I've learned to like appreciate different art styles. I've learned, I bought a couple, pieces of art, over the last couple of years that were multiple thousands of dollars, but I did it because either whichever my ex-wife or girlfriend told me that they liked it, and I was like, oh, I like it too. Sure, we'll put it on the wall. But I feel like my appreciation and my understanding has really grown. And then, of course, as you've heard multiple episodes, I got to launch some of my own AI art. I've got to interview some really amazing artists on the podcast. Really getting able to connect with them. A couple of them that I'm able to text message with when I'm feeling imposter syndrome or I'm confused why this feeling exists as an artist, because it is a kind of a different realm. But I think for everyone, I think art can kind of show up in different ways. You can be a consumer of it, you can be a collector of it, you can appreciate it, you can also be a sharer of it, or you use it in your marketing. But you could also use it, become your own artist. But then there's also like, where does Web3 fit in here? And so I'm excited for this conversation we have today. And of course, we're first going to bring in my co-host, Leslie, is joining us, and we're gonna break down some of the things that Leslie's been working on. We talk a lot about the team here, and not only does Leslie, have amazing brand and reputation here in Web3, far outside of the NFT 365 space, but also just in, being able to work through ways that we can grow the community, right? I think we is greater than me goes both directions, right? Not only all of us individually, but we also can, how can we leverage some of the things that we're having? So Leslie, thanks for jumping on. Excited for this conversation. Talk to our audience a little bit about what you've been working on as far as like artist curation and kind of, being able to bring some of our community artists to life.
Yeah, hey, so thanks for having me. First off, you give me a little too much credit, so I appreciate that. Yeah, working on the nifty stuff has been a super fun journey because I'm, sort of a techie at heart. So being part of the publisher program, which I mean is technically yours, I'm just sort of operationally handling it, but it's been a really fun adventure. I think that Nifty is such a great platform to allow people to easily make a bridge between, Web 2 to Web 3. And it's a great, great starting point. And I think it's a wonderful way for people that are not necessarily known in Web 3 to get exposure and to create a sense of community around artists. And so I think that that's been so amazing. The thing that surprised me the most about working on this was it was exciting from a tech perspective to be able to do the configuration. So we're getting drop details, we're setting everything up. We're basically doing a personal curation for each artist that we're working with. But the part that surprised me the most was getting to know the artist and the story behind the artist. And I think that that is it has to be the most meaningful thing. I've literally been blown away by every single person that I've talked to about whether it's their journey into the art or what the art means to them. And I think that's something that in the traditional world of NFTs that we've almost gotten away from in the total like the PFP environment, where when you look at specific art that there is a meaning behind it, there is symbolism. And I think through whether it's AI art or in real life art or digital art and any of those components, that it's just I think it's a nice and refreshing change to get back to what the emotion that image evokes for each person, whether it's intended that way or it's how you interpret it. And I think that that's been the most amazing part of the journey. I just really wasn't expecting it, I guess, as I should have, but I didn't.
I love that you brought that up. And, for those that listened to one of the previous episodes that we just recently did, I kind of broke down the different marketplaces, right, for selling art. And, one of the things with Nifty Gateway, right, they reached out to me, not because I was an AI artist, not because they thought, man, Brian should be creating art. That was not in their reach out at all. It was more of like, Brian, we believe you're pretty in touch with the community, pretty in touch with what the NFT space is going on, and you kind of know who's who, and being able to kind of bring some of their art to life. And what's interesting about that is, it's kind of like, the idea that like Christie's, or a traditional museum, or auction house, it is about like who's curating it, right? Because let's face it, if you're not asked to be on display, you never have a chance for your art to be successful, right? If Beeple was never asked to put his things on sale, it would have never gone on sale in those kind of marketplaces. But I think, Leslie, what you brought up, I think, is such an important component here, is that like, I love Web3 for the artist being able to be the artist, but it's also pushes artists to allow their story and their why and their how, and allow that to also shine, right? And I think, that to me has been fun. It's been fun interviewing artists. And it's also gonna be fun because we get to bring on, two of the artists, and I'm gonna bring them on right now, that are going to be doing a drop on Nifty. And, and I think the beautiful thing that we kind of have this conversation on is that, we're going to open this up for more people to get involved, right? So if you're a listener and you're an artist, or maybe I have a really good friend of mine who is aware of what we're working on, and he really wants to get his son's art into Web3. And his son unfortunately passed away a year ago, and his son created amazing pieces of art, and he wants to raise some money. And so we're going to kind of bring him in the fold. But I think that's part of the beauty. But what I also want to just put out there, and Leslie and I, originally, like when we were kind of figuring out like how this was going to work, there really wasn't there's not like a playbook, right? Like, how do you curate artists in Web3 from your community? That's not like something that anyone really knows about. And people could do it just about every way possible. And what I love is, some of the ones that we are initially launching, they're not only been active in our podcast community, but active in Web3, active in really just like this overall piece. And so, Jeff, thanks so much, yourself and Ryan. Jeff and Ryan, thanks so much for joining us today. I will kick it to, Ryan wanted me to kick it to Jeff for business stuff, so I'm gonna kick it the other way. Ryan, I'm gonna kick it to you first. Introduce yourself. Give us a little of your background, because I know, as a traditional artist, I love hearing kind of like that origin story. And then I'll go to get Jeff's, and then we'll hear a little bit about the Web3 bringing it to life. So Ryan, over to you first.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us on too. We appreciate it, and it's been really fun being a part of the team. I was like, every day there's been a new email, and I've been texting Jeff. What does this mean, man? Show me, tell me. So, I've been an artist in creating all my life since I've been, I won Snoopy's World of Skating when I was in 4th grade for most unique coloring for the Detroit Free Press. And, it kind of went on like that. Really, truth be told, like, I moved around a lot when I was younger, and, art was like, it was always there, and it was always a constant for me. And so I pursued it. And through high school and stuff like that, I was doing art. I was always interested in it. I got into every art school, and, I wasn't ready for it. There was a big part of me that it's almost a little part that has hampered my career. And it's like, I needed to develop my own style. I never agreed with like, and it's hard. It's hard to put stuff out there that does not look like other people's stuff. And there's, I'm really thinking about it. There's really a plan to like how I do things. And what happened was, I had kids, and I was doing some gallery shows. I'll be honest with you guys. The devil of drinking really got in my way, man. It got in my way for 20 years. And I became this person, like I was industrial electrical foreman, ran companies. I got in this mode of becoming this person, and 3 years, put the bottle down, and, life started changing. And I went back to art. I was just doing art to basically give paintings away. And then, it started to be like, people are really interested in my art again. I think I can start putting stuff out there. So last April, I gave them the keys back to the shop, and I quit my job and opened my studio full time.
Wow. We're definitely going to dive into that. I love that. I mean, I love that story. I mean, from fourth grade, and kudos to you. I appreciate the transparency and vulnerability, and I think that is a beautiful thing also of Web3, right? I think there's an element of not only reinvention, but right. I think it's also we can also kind of take advantage of some new opportunities that maybe might have kind of passed us by, or where that kind of fits. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. But Jeff, love to hear a little bit about your background, and then how you discovered this fourth grade award-winning artist.
Exactly.
I'd like to start off with my strongest award.
So true. So it's interesting, and I've been in different spaces and different businesses and organizations for a lot of years. And I've been in sales and in real estate and in finance for about 25 years now. Through that, I've kind of always kind of built this community. And if it's a networking organization that I've started, or a Toastmasters club or something like that, I've kind of always brought people together. I've always believed in that concept. I just think that's so valuable. I look at the relationships that I've built over all these years, and just, there's just so much value in having that, and doing things together with people is fantastic. So I kind of built a traditional business. I've had some successes, had some failures, right? Like everybody. And all of a sudden I saw this whole space, this whole NFT space. I was never in like the crypto market, before, but I kind of fell into NFTs. It resonated with me. I saw how the blockchain was going to change so much, and just how it was definitely the future of what was going to happen. And then, kind of came in as an investor. I really saw the value of this. Even in this year, I saw the value of this, and connected to some things. And, really Fanzo was, your podcast is what really was kind of my grounding wire. It really was. And it was kind of that like sanity check does this make sense? And it does. And there's a huge, huge value here. So Ryan started his business, his traditional art business, and he had his first kind of show. So I came over as a friend, to support him. And then I saw what he was doing, and I'm like, this work is fantastic. I said, I'm buying 2 pieces, but you're signing them, because when you're rich and famous, this is going to be worth something. And I want your name on this. And then I said to him, Ryan, why don't we start an NFT project? He goes, what's that? And then the journey began, right? And then all of a sudden was interesting. I went from this collector, investor mindset to all of a sudden it was a founder mindset, and it was a building mindset, and it was a community mindset. And all of a sudden, how did this happen, right? All of a sudden, the message you were sending on the podcast and some other podcasts was different. Well, the listener was different. I guess I was different, right? And then Ryan and I kind of started this adventure together. So that's a little bit of the background.
I love that. And I think, for anyone that's listening, right, I think it is such a funny journey, right? Because Web3 allows an opportunity to do a whole wide range of things, right? From investor, collector, full-time, founder, to even just, supporting others. And like, we haven't even tapped into metaverse, AR, VR. I mean, there's so many realms that this is going down that unlocks. But I love that you kind of brought that, kind of to life. And I'm curious, and I think, one of the things that Leslie talks about a lot too, right, from a founder perspective, is some of the nuanced things that are going to go there. But I first want to jump in, just from Ryan, from your, like you said, just the artist side, kind of, hey, you're paying the bills and dealing with other things for a while, and then rediscovering art. I'm curious, like the jump, right? Like many people talk about the jump in Web3 to give up the role that you had at the company, give back the keys, and launch a studio. I mean, you bet on yourself. You went all in on yourself. And I don't know a lot of people that are willing to do that, not to mention leaving a global pandemic into a recession, very, risky times. Could you share a little bit about like that from a studio perspective, like you kind of going all in? And then when you and Jeff were kind of talking Web3, did it seem like, where did that kind of fit in your kind of vision of the studio? Because I know you didn't think about that when you kind of made the jump. Because I think for so many of our listeners, is like one or the other, or like one thing leads to the other. But you took the risk, went all in on physical, having a studio as a traditional artist, and then were presented this kind of on top. Can you talk a little bit about that jump that you made?
Well, the jump was, I did I've run businesses for a long time. I was basically the head of businesses. So it's like, I understand how a business works, So betting on yourself isn't, if I have a commodity people want to buy and they're excited about, like, I know I'm holding something. Well, the point of the matter was, I was industrial electrical technician. I mean, this is a hard job. I was foreman, ran a bunch of dudes. Like, you had to become like almost like the king alpha to be part, we were in buildings, and as it started to jade me to like, it jaded me. It totally jaded me. I was driving to work. I hated my job, hated my life. Like, it was like, and it was 11 hours out of each day, and it wasn't about who I was working with. I loved the people I was working with. It was just like, I think I can give more. I can give more. And I was always a leader, and I've always felt like I have this outlet. Like, I have this art, like this explosion inside of me of like bold colors and, really radical ideas. And I got hurt in February, I just like kind of like tweaked my back a little bit. And it was enough to just realize where I stood. And I started painting again. I couldn't move for, 6 weeks. And I started painting again. And I started to develop, like, it was almost like, it was like the last part of like my like rebirth professionally. It was like, find something worth fighting for and go all in on it. So, I had a meeting with my bosses, and we didn't see eye to eye. And my wife did not even see it was coming, and I think I brought the house down for one day because I just called her up and I was like, I'm done, Mo. And right when I called her, I was walking out of the building. I was like, I'm done. The boats are burned. We're done with this life. And it hasn't been easy, and I don't want to be like, I've been selling art. Like, hell, I've went around my neighborhood and put up drywall and built a deck for somebody, like, like, failing is just quitting. That is all it is. Like, I can make this dream a possibility by doing this and doing that and moving it to the next step. This is our next step in this business. It's evolving. And you know what? I don't know my person. I have an unquenchable thirst to bring life to art and bring people into the space. And there are so many good artists that are my friends that are so tippy-toe around NFTs right now. They're kind of like waiting for me to pull the trigger and see, like, hey man, now we can stop laughing at you, because I went all in. These pieces are only available as NFTs. There's not going to be any prints of these pieces, the originals, hopefully we're, giving out to our holders and, building our community through that way. But this, you can be anybody you want in this space, which it doesn't pigeonhole me into a fine artist. I've been learning, multimedia and learning video and producing videos and, meeting musicians. And it's like, I feel like I'm really good at being somebody that can bring groups together. And, I really want to be a part of the community, and I want to start forming our group here.
I love that. And I love that. And, Jeff, you mentioned your love for that, right? The networking side, the bringing people together. And you're also, Jeff, I have to give you the flowers in the sense of, you are a champion of supporting, and you've supported the podcast and some of my AI art. And I would just say, like, for those that, I preach that, be a collector before you're a creator. Right. And I preach that for many facets. And one of them also is just the appreciation of the space. And I'm curious, Jeff, like, as you were collecting, and then you said, you were a friend, you went, bought this physical painting, you loved the art, enough. What was kind of like either like the aha or like the connection point for you, Jeff? I'm curious, just from a, like, okay, wait, I think Ryan might be the right artist to work with, or the right artist to kind of team up with, bring his art into Web3, but also kind of like how that kind of fits into the things that you love doing. So can you give us a little bit of that, Jeff? And then we'll jump in a little bit more about like the collection and things that people can learn about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So yeah, I do think that being a collector or investor at the beginning is important, right? And I think that's a great way to get started and to understand how things work. I really do. What I think is interesting is coming into this space is, we get a blank canvas, right? We can decide what we want to paint on that canvas. In other words, right? We can decide what role we want to play, and what experiences we want to bring in. And I see this value in the Web3 world of, different experiences, different strengths coming in and coming together. And that's what I really enjoy. So like my role a lot of the times is being the business person, right? The sales ideas, the leadership development, and partnering with people. One of the things I've learned, and I'm smart enough to know to learn from younger people. And because sometimes there's the tech side of things that I don't get necessarily, but to be aware of what's happening and listening and coming together to do those things. So taking some of that traditional networking experiences and bringing it in here has been great. As far as partnering with, Ryan and how I saw that, it was kind of interesting because I really didn't think about being a founder or running a project. And it was almost instantly when I saw his art that it triggered. It was like that. It was like, okay, this makes sense. And this art, this kind of graffiti look, this kind of gritty look has a certain characteristic about it. It has a certain ability to tell that story. Each painting has a story in it, which is great. And I can see how this can go into the Web3 space and really, provide a great project and provide, something that we can be really proud of and come together. So I guess there's all these different pieces that kind of mesh together as time goes.
I love that. And Leslie, you mentioned earlier, like the stories connecting with you, right? And I love, both Ryan and Jeff kind of bringing it together. You've been the one spearheading it from our side, from a curation, bringing the project drop to life on Nifty. Like, what is your take on, like, for those that are listening, that either maybe they have a Ryan, right? They have an artist that they appreciate and love in Web3, or not in Web3, that they would love to kind of bring in, or kind of the flip of that. What's your kind of vibe been, Leslie, on kind of where this kind of all fits into Web3 and what we're kind of bringing to life here with, their upcoming drop?
I have so many emotions at it, and I'm certainly not a person that holds back in terms of my opinion. I think we all know me as well in that regard. But see, you're laughing because it's true. But I think this is, like, honestly something that the community and Web3 as a whole is hungry for, because and no disservice to the existing projects and the generative projects that we're used to. That's like synonymous with NFTs. You think of PFP type pictures, and it's not a discredit to the digital artists. It's not a discredit to those, because those are representations of again, tokens for community, for whatever utility. When we start to get back to the real bottom line here, which is really the art and the emotion that we talked about earlier, and what type of feeling that evokes, I think that it restores a sense of humanity and like an interaction and community that I think that we were as a group really hungry for. So it's been a really fun and interesting journey to kind of rediscover that, even for myself. It was just, it brought up so many emotions that I didn't realize, I think, were sort of not with me in Web3. So I think that this is a great opportunity, and this is a perfect use case as to show making a Web2 to Web3, transition, or making a bridge from Web2 to Web3. As Ryan mentioned, your artist friends are kind of waiting to see what happens next. This is a great opportunity to build community around that concept, and to be the first one in this group for that, I think is a great opportunity as well, because I think it's only a matter of time. I understand maybe some people's hesitation, but once they start to see that it doesn't have to be what they believe NFTs are synonymous for, an NFT is just literally a non-fungible token. It doesn't have to be what some folks describe as just the PFP process. So I love the journey of all of this, because every single day and every hour that goes by, we find more inventive ways to use NFTs. We find interesting concepts to further the technology. This is all just scratching the surface of where we're going to land in 5 or 10 or 15 years. We don't know them yet, but there's tons of ways to do that. And this is yet just another layer to add to that. And I think that it's going to be an amazing way. This is the first start of it for you guys. And I, of course, love the art. And from the very first interaction that we had, when I won't speak to the inspiration on a couple, but is like took me back to my childhood, which I'm super passionate about that specific inspiration. So I felt really connected to it very, very quickly. And the art style is just awesome. And there's such a variance in the art style, which is a great opportunity to showcase that. And I just think that it's a great way for people to get additional exposure that you wouldn't have otherwise, because it becomes you in the driver's seat of your art. And that's giving you back control is an amazing concept that isn't very Web 2-ish. It's very Web 3. So as we move forward, there's just so much more opportunity. So that's, but I, of course, I want to flip that over to Jeff or Ryan for a comment too.
Go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was just going to say, to the aspect of art, being a huge component of NFTs, is I think it's also an easier way for people to come into the space. People that aren't used to NFTs and it's just overwhelming to them. They can get, oh, this is an art picture that's digitalized that now you have access to at all times. They can understand that, I think. Sometimes, you have an 8 that's worth $100,000. It doesn't resonate, right? But a traditional art piece resonates with people, and they can understand that, and it can be a great segue for somebody getting into the whole industry, I believe, which is a great opportunity. One of the things that we see is connecting the two worlds together, quite frankly.
I love that. I love that connection. And I'm curious, Ryan, you mentioned before a little bit about the art that you are going to be dropping, but I know for a lot of artists, the idea of like cannibalizing their existing pieces of physical art, or how do I like separate these two worlds, or how do I make sure that what people feel by buying an NFT is what they feel when they buy a portrait, but if they're, or buy a physical canvas, but if I'm selling it for either less than what I would sell a canvas for, how do I not make them feel like they didn't get gypped, right? There's all these, and I've had to learn this because I didn't really know that side. But then when I'm talking to more artists, I'm like, why aren't you here? All of these things go through their heads, rightfully so, right? Because there is a lot of factors. How did you go about like thinking about what pieces you wanted to make NFTs and how that like kind of like art flows into kind of your art style of creation? I think that would really be some great context.
Like I really liked this drop. It's 10 pieces, and I really wanted to do I wanted to do all my sides in it. I mean, there's a reason it's an eclectic drop. I mean, it kind of fits all my little personalities in my pieces. So, I wanted to tell stories. I wanted to, there's a reason I came in here and told you the story about my, about sobriety, about not drinking. It's because if I'm coming into this space, I'm coming in as a real person, as a real artist, as my face is here. We're in front of this business. I'm not hiding. If you want to know about my art, I have to tell my story. And, there's a part of I deal with a lot of artists and talk to a lot of artists daily. And there's a part that, a lot of is hampered by holding your story back. They don't want to tell their story. Well, I like the Web3 environment because I can sell one of these pieces and immediately have contact with the buyer. Like I don't have this personal relationship in real life with people that buy my art. It's just, usually, like a piece gets shipped somewhere, they pay and we're done. The transaction is done. This able to build and able to almost like put out something that is going to grow organically and is going to add and is, like I'm putting pieces out there to showcase who I am more so than showcase. I have stronger pieces. I'm doing this. I'm showing my pieces, these 10 pieces, because they circumference who I am as a person and artist.
I love that. I feel like we could have called our the media company like the multi-hyphenated media company, right? Because I love people that have multiple sides. I think we all have multiple sides. I think we created a culture where we stymied people. We told people, you are what your work was, or you could only be one thing. And you're like, no, I can be a dad, I can be an engineer, I can be an artist, I can be empathetic at the same time, be athletic or whatever that may be. And I'm glad you brought up too, like that artist struggle of the story, right? Because I think rightfully so, artists have been shamed, they've been shunned, they've been devalued in many cases when a story was brought to life. And unfortunately, that I think had a lot to do with just like the weird like culture that a lot of art existed in offline experiences, right? You had to go to find these different, you were collecting or where artists kind of explored. And I think Web3 does. It's the story allows us to kind of go deeper and connect. And I will tell you, I had my first I preach a lot here on like what the blockchain offers, but being an experience, I had someone yesterday actually sell one of my pieces of AI art. She had bought 4 of my pieces and resold it. And it popped up in my email, and I DM'd the person on Twitter and was like, thanks so much for, buying this piece on secondary. I really appreciate it. And it was that moment that I was like, wait, how cool is that? Because the thing I tell people about NFTs is like, unlike a traditional artist, once it's bought, you already mentioned, like that's a very disconnected customer relationship. You have no real clue of where it goes or the authority of it beyond. And I was able to see it on chain, who bought it. I opened up their wallet, saw the other pieces they collected. So my outreach was like, wait, you love Gabe Weiss as well? I have a couple of Gabe Weisses. And I sent the message and I was like, I don't know if they know how cool that was of a message of implementation. And I think for artists that are out there, that's a value add, that it's not, the crypto conversation. And it's not about like discords and additional work, but it's like people can connect with your story. You can then connect with people even deeper that buy one piece or sell a piece, right? I think there's something really beautiful about that. And I also love, Ryan, that you mentioned like you kind of showing up, right? Like I do believe, one of the biggest issues of digital, of online for the last 15 years is that we assumed we were more connected. Therefore, we were more open and more, dialed in with each other. And I think we went the other way. We spent most of these years with filtered pictures, and you had to have a manufactured story and all of these things. And we realized, I believe that, the pandemic had a lot to do with it, was that, we're all human and we all got stories. We all have different demons and things that we've had to deal with, but we also are more than just one, kind of piece of that. And, I'm curious, Jeff, from your view too, right? You mentioned earlier, and I appreciate the kind words about the podcast, and that definitely inspires us to always keep producing. But you mentioned kind of going from collector to founder, right? And I've mentioned I went from content creator and very proud storyteller to all of a sudden artist, and it was imposter syndrome out the. I mean, I even yesterday posting yesterday's piece of the daily AI art I'm doing was scary for me, because I haven't done a piece that had kind of like a completely different feel. To your point, Ryan, like I put it out and I was like, man, I do not like people. It's weird. It's a weird feeling. So Jeff, talk to me a little bit about like that feeling for you, right? And I think one of the cool things that we're able to do with Nifty Gateway, and shout out to Nifty on kind of like empowerment, is like not only like you're helping Ryan onboard into Web3, right? And in a way, Nifty Gateway is helping us facilitate onboarding artists into this space as well. And that is like it's a powerful mechanism. So Jeff, when you were moving from like investor, collector into like founder and empowering, bringing a friend in, what were some of the things that you've gone through as far as like what you wanted to do or what it felt like, and maybe your own little imposter syndrome? I'd love to hear your take on that.
So that's a great way to term it, right? So it was kind of like, okay, so why am I here, right? Like as an investor, it's one thing because that's my, bag, right? That's what I'm doing. As I move into a founder position, it's like, okay, my voice needs to be heard. And it's like, why would I be here? I've got, no experience before this. And it's like, why do people want to hear from me? And then I realized, and it took me a while to find myself. It was interesting because I felt kind of out of place. It was like going into Twitter space at the beginning was like so awkward. And then I was like, okay, now I can speak on Twitter spaces, and now I can run a Twitter space, and now I'm running Twitter spaces for other people. But at the beginning, it was like, that was so weird to me. And it's like, so that mind shift is so important. And, I mentioned kind of that canvas, and it's just kind of the way I describe it. It's like, I can draw that picture. I can paint that picture of who I want to be at this point. It's kind of like a new opportunity to grow and develop. Take some of the old experiences, right? There's value there, but learning new things every single day. And I think that's really important for everybody. And anything you're doing is taking that, that 1% more, that one little thing to learn and grow a little bit more in this space is so valuable. All of a sudden I put myself on a stage, though, or I put Ryan and I on a stage, right? It's like, okay, now here we are. Okay, now we're willing to really put ourselves out there and to promote ourselves, to market ourselves, to be, giving advice to other people, helping other people grow, adding value. And all of a sudden it's like this, and putting ourselves out there as far as here's the artwork, even though it's Ryan's art, and, obviously a lot of pride. I have a lot of pride in Ryan's artwork, and I feel pressure, because not only do I need to, we need to perform, because it's important to, have that next success, but we have, families and everything else that we have to, take care of. And, it's an interesting transition to kind of learn the ownership mentality, which is the difference, like the ownership to represent, and, the buck stops here kind of, thought process that has to happen to own this business in this space. So yeah, a lot of different shifts there have happened.
I love that you mentioned about and we've talked, actually, this has been a really big topic. Not only have Jeff, you and I talked about it, but Fanzo, we've talked about it a lot, is the entire concept of finding your way in Web3, right? Everybody has a skill in Web3 that carries over from Web2 and what you're in real life and what your passion is. And I love the fact that the two of you have teamed up from not only a business perspective, but then the artist perspective. It really is a concept that a lot of folks have not looked beyond the immediate for. And if you go into it with that business structure and understanding really, honestly, how to run a business and some of the basic mechanics that can set you up for success, I think that will determine the longevity of, be it community, be it, this is a business, no matter what way you spin it, this is a business. You're delivering a product, whether it's a digital product or a physical product is really irrelevant. It's still a business. And everybody has to eat. Everybody has to have an income in some perspective. I mean, of course, if it rained down $1 million in my lap and I could do whatever, sure, that would be fantastic. I'd probably still do the same thing, just a lot more of it. But that being said, I do love that that it almost always comes back to that, finding your way in Web3, finding a way to operate as a business in this perspective. I really needed to call that out because it's something that we've all talked about collectively a lot. And it's just a recurring theme that I hope that if anybody's listening in this particular spot, that they can take this as one small part of, taking that component with them to apply towards what they might be doing and helping them find their own way.
I mean, there's so many people right now that are listening that are asking the question that Jeff asked, right? Jeff, that you were asking, right? What's my role here? And even what could a role even be like that I haven't explored or I haven't been open to, right? And I think there are a lot of artists that would love someone to be able to bring them in from the business connection and networking side and say, hey, let me help bridge that gap, right? I think, Ryan, to your point, a lot of the people that are in the artist space, I believe there's lots of, let's be very truthful. The technology is not easy. The onboarding is not easy. Crypto is a nightmare because the media likes to portray it as an extremely big nightmare. There is new security. There's all of these things that we just have to be very open with that. But I also think there's ways to mitigate this. And, one of them is what we're doing here, right? This is a full court collaboration if I haven't ever seen one before, right? Being able to, a podcast, being able to connect with an investor and a collector that then is giving back to us and bringing a community, and then you finding an artist that you love and us putting it out there, being like, hey, we're opening the door for some collections to kind of team up and drop. And that's because Nifty Gateway happened to know the podcast got listeners. And so this is like a really full circle, beautiful thing. And so I think for those that are listening, to your point, Leslie, like what your role is in Web3 is that there are so many ways to tap in to your experience, your background, your skill set, and even explore new ones. And I want to throw this out there too, because part of the reason I loved Nifty Gateway as the onboard ramp for a lot of this type of bringing to life is that it allows people to buy NFTs. Anyone that's listening, you can buy one of these pieces of art. We'll talk about the drop here in a minute, without having a wallet on the crypto side and not having any crypto or going to an exchange. You can simply create an account with your email address and buy with a credit card or a debit card. So it is not. Go ahead.
Oh, and I was going to say, and you can do it all at the same time. You don't even have to like register in advance or try to get a financial component hooked up to it in advance, where you have to try to figure out how to fund your Coinbase account to switch it over to, whatever method. This is all super easy. Credit card. You can create your account in like 30 seconds and then ultimately make your purchase. And it couldn't be any simpler in terms of adding it to your cart and checking out. The concept is a perfect bridge from Web 2 to Web 3 for people that haven't gotten into that component yet.
And the beautiful thing of that, and Leslie, not only is that part easy, right? But it's also easy if you want this to be your first NFT that's in OpenSea or in your MetaMask, right? So maybe this is okay, let me buy one of these pieces of art and then let me go set up a wallet. And it's easy. I mean, I'm talking, it's one button. You pay a little bit of gas, and it's then over on your MetaMask in your wallet. It's then now in OpenSea, because there are other options, there are other marketplaces. There's lots of advantages for these different onboarding, buying, and selling, but a lot of them kind of pigeonhole you one way, or like if you buy one with a credit card, it's stuck in credit card land in like 2.5 web land, which means that it never sits in OpenSea. And I will say I sold a couple NFTs on Rally. We've sold actually lots of NFTs on Rally. And that was a big piece. People came to me and said, Brian, giving you $5,000 was nothing, which first of all, I was like, okay, I'm glad that's for you. $5,000 to me is never going to be giving nothing. But they were like, I want to show off what I bought. And I downloaded this Meta thing and it's not there. And I was like, oh, well, it's a layer 2. And because we use this Rally system that allowed you to buy it on their site with a credit card, and they're like, yeah, but I'm not even playing in the playground now, Brian. And so I say that because I think with artists, like we have to also present like, okay, what are all the advantages? Mm-hmm. And this is like a beautiful advantage of it, right? Being able to kind of bring these components. But I also think, like this is me, forecasting into Jeff and Ryan's future pieces is like each physical piece that you sell in the future can have a digital twin NFT component where someone that's buying it is going to have an NFT that is kind of associated, that kind of allows Ryan for you to kind of continue this in the physical in your gallery and allow some of these relationship things that you like that Web3 offers to be extended. And I think that's kind of a really cool component that most aren't even talking about, right? A lot of us are thinking like Web3 artist or artist that's all online. And I mean, I love that you guys have, not only do you have a studio, but you also have, the physical art, you're the business behind it. So I'm curious, we have the drop coming. We'll talk a little bit about the dates, but the other piece of this, Ryan, you mentioned, you picked, the 10 pieces. The other thing is about like, how much is too much? How much is too little, right? We can give our own advice. Like, how much do you price it for? I'm curious, like, and you can be, as honest as you feel like being honest. For you, like now that we're getting closer to the drop, what's your comfort level on like as an artist as being valued? Because I will tell you, this is what keeps me up at night. It's like a weird thing that I put on top of my head all the time is like, I value creatives so much and I respect the craft, the art. And for me, I never want people to feel like they have to, give up a piece of them or not, be able to create it themselves. And thankfully, Leslie took over kind of the I mean, let's be very truthful. Leslie has run all of this side of the house, right? And she won't take that. I will gladly remind everybody that she's been able to kind of bring all of this to life. If it was on me, there would still be a DM from Jeff saying he was interested, and I would still be waiting to reply. But Ryan, from your standpoint of like, now that we're to the drops part and you've gone through like this process, how has that been for you as far as like comfort as an artist, and like for those aspiring either artists that are out there that haven't gone Web3, how can they relate to like what you've gone through up until now and kind of like the excitement for the upcoming drop?
Well, I first off, like valuing my work, I think it's more we're valuing where we're coming in this space right now. What's important for us is building the community. So yes, I'm not charging what I charge for a real big, a fine art piece, but I don't think we're charging anything either. So it's like being comfortable with like who you are, where the market's at. Like we all know where the market's at, I'm a new artist. I really want to come out strong. Me coming out strong is us selling our pieces and then being able to build off of that. Yeah, it's better for us to get our pieces in people's hands at this point than it is to put a bunch of money in our pockets right now. We're just not there. We're just, we've been doing this in the background for 7 months, but we're just like, this is just starting to blossom. Like this last 2 months, like we've really set up with some groups and talked to, made some valuable connections. So this first drop is going to be our introduction to the community, and hopefully people love our pieces and are buying them. And then we're talking further and going from there, instead of using this as, oh, I think I'm a great artist, I want to get this X amount of dollars for it. It's not why. This is not the time for that. This is a time to bring in our people, build, show some stuff off, show our artwork off, get our message out there, which is, be good to each other, help each other out. And if we continue being ourselves in this space and help each other and promote people and do advocacy like we are, our future is going to be bright. I'm not worried about money right now.
I love that. I love that because I do think it's an interesting positioning, right? And when I was having this conversation with an AI artist and via DM, and a couple artists had reached out to him and said, if you're not selling your art for this amount of money, don't consider yourself an artist. And I felt so mad that someone was like presenting that to somebody that wants to put their work out, right? And there's also this element of, if we get it in more hands and inspire more people and more collectors, and also it's a weird feel. You would have asked me 7 months ago, I could not relate because I've never put out anything like that. But like figuring out like, wow, like, I said this last night on the Twitter space, like I've been working on this digital animation piece for a while, and I was really worried about putting it out because I was afraid like what people were going to say or if they weren't going to like it. And it was a lot. And weirdly enough, I put it out. And as of right now, I still have not sold one of those 11. And it doesn't bother me one bit because I put it out and people have commented, and I love it. I love where it's like, it's sitting and like in this weird world, we get into our heads about all kinds of things and like reasoning. And I think, Ryan, you summed it up so perfectly in like that idea of like timing, right? Timing of like kind of bring this to life. And Jeff, I'm curious your take on that because Leslie mentioned it earlier. We were PFP drunk for a while, right? And we all were. And if you look at us, I was buying an NFT every single day for a year. First 6 months, I bought 3 artist one-of-one pieces. 3 first 6 months. Mm-hmm. The second 6 months, I bought over 40 in the collection because the timing of the space also like because like for me, I remember Matt Caesar was on our podcast and I was like, man, Matt Caesar's got some legendary art. He's a World Series baseball player that's been an artist. And I went there and I was like, 13 ETH to buy one, like his like lowest. I was like, I don't like where, and this was when ETH was $3,000. And I was like, yeah, that's not happening. I don't have that. And I remember feeling a little bit alienated or polarized, because I love his art and I'm, very, I'm a big cheerleader of his. Matt is a great human, but I also think the timing of the whole space wrapped around. Jeff, what's your take on that from a timing perspective, just from the market? Because I think Ryan connected that nicely from an artist, from you thinking about it from a business realm, and you mentioned earlier, your background in building networking groups and Toastmasters and John Maxwell's side of the house. A lot of that is you have to build your tribe and you have to get to a tipping point, and you have to. So talk to me a little bit about your thoughts about the timing of this, because from the outside, some people will be like, Sam Beekman-Fried just kind of ruined us for a year. Why are we dropping it in January? How do you look at the timing of kind of where we're at in the market for kind of bringing these type of collection to life?
So I think there's kind of two pieces I see in timing. And it's interesting that you said that, because at the beginning, I think I purchased mostly, PFPs, right? And then as time evolved, I purchased more art, because what I saw is, I think certain things are going to be around, and art is going to be one of them. Like I'm on, Art Blocks, getting some pieces there, or Grails, through Proof. And I see those items that are valuable lasting long term. So I have definitely had a flight to quality as a whole, right? For myself. As far as marketing, if it's a bear market or a bull market, or if it's, a strong market or whatever is happening right now, is the time that people that are involved are serious, which is good. I think people that are in this business right now are going to be in this business, right? We've had a lot of people leave, and that's okay. And we will evolve. I think right now art is making a big statement. And I think quality is making a big statement. You're seeing quality projects like Bulls and Apes, Be Friends, quality projects doing good things, building community. In the art world, you're seeing that happening also. And I think this is a great opportunity. So people that are here are serious, and they're going to be purchasing art. They're going to be staying in. They're going to be building on those art communities. And I just see that so powerful. I think we're going to look back in about 3 years, and we're going to say, wow, this is the same space, really? And we're going to see a totally different business. But there's going to be some pieces that are going to be the same, and the quality of art and of some other projects are going to still be around. That's what I see.
Love that take. And I also think we need people that are willing to be leaders and be the first in, right? Ryan, your community of artists being they're excited to see what you're going to do in the space. And let's face it, the ones that are first in are not always the ones that make the money, that get the fame. But if it's not for the people that are willing to kind of try out different ways and put things out there, and even, I shout out, Nifty Gateway again, and they didn't pay for promotion. This is not a promoted one that way, but Nifty trusting me as a non-artist, non-creating artist to curate is not what at least from my circles I've asked around, no other curated marketplace is empowering a non-artist to do that. And I think kudos to them for kind of even kind of bringing that to life. Leslie, you want to talk a little bit about the drop and some of the things that people can, we've teased it up. We got a lot of the background, excited to, link to a lot of the art. We'll of course link to the marketplace. For people that bought any of the Mint 365 12 time capsule pieces, you'll be very familiar with the whole Nifty Gateway process. But Leslie, you want to give a little bit of context for what people can look forward to with the drop?
Sure, absolutely. I wanted to call out one thing before I go there. And because I actually have two quotes from this conversation that I think were almost jaw-dropping, very meaningful. And one of the things there were two things that you said, Ryan, but the first one was, failing is just quitting. And so your approach to success was evolution. And I think that I just had to really call that out as a really awesome way to approach everything. And I was like, wow, that was some deep shit, man. I love it.
Thank you.
And the other one was, I was taking notes here because I wanted to write it down, but to know your art is to tell your story. And I think that if anything sums up this entire project and the entire concept of what we're doing with the publishing on Nifty Gateway, that is exactly what it is, because it is basically part storytelling. And it's a great opportunity to get the stories out there. So I wanted to call those out to like specifically make sure when I go back and hear the podcast again, I'm like, remember those quotes, but I literally had to write them down. I'll actually let them probably go into a little bit more of the drop, but the drop is scheduled for the 27th, which is Friday, here in January, approximately noon-ish on Eastern time. I think we're still figuring out exactly what hour it will be. I mean, of course, again, there's all the pieces will be individual. And I think there's 4 like variations of each one that are all like digitally signed, which I think is really, really awesome. So that, not only are you getting this original piece, but it's signed of, there's basically 1 of 4 for each one of them. I'll flip it to Ryan and Jeff to tell maybe a couple of stories, or at least maybe pick 1 or 2 that you want to tell a story about. If you want to share, I don't know if you want to get that out there yet or wait till the drop comes, but there's so many cool and interesting pieces that when you quoted that you were really showcasing all the different personalities that you have. I think that's actually a really perfect way to put it. Not that I think that you have multiple personalities, but it was like they're very different pieces, and it really does showcase your love of color, which is just completely evident. So it's like, I felt like by working on this, I had a peek into your mind. And I hope that when people see these collections and they connect with the stories, that they also feel the same way.
Yeah. And I just, and this was, this is all well thought out. Like, I want to come into the space. This is a great spot for us to come into the space. And, I want to come out as being a real artist. As, I'm of course doing visually striking things for people to like, but, I want to be deep, and I want to give this, there is a fight in me, and there, and I'll talk about, a couple of the pieces, I always want to be this really rough, tough, gritty guy. And, but, there's a really part of me that, my favorite thing to do still is like sit down and read like a Shel Silverstein poem book, like Where the Sidewalk Ends. There's something so beautiful about, like, I love I'm trying to think of what I'm trying to say. There's something so beautiful when you make that real connection where people are listening to your story, following your story, and, cheering you on, and, understanding where you're coming from. And, I want to say, I'm not painting happy faces all the time, because quite frankly, I'm not really ever happy. I am always trying to, I have a real competition with myself to, like, really, I want to get thoughts visually to people without giving any words. And, it's being able to do this and being able to put this stuff out here and being vulnerable and telling my story is, I just, I'm excited to do it. And I'm excited to come out here and be a real person.
I love that. Jeff, what's your take on, they have the collection for those that are, that are listening, that are interested, we'll have the links up there. But, as far as the pieces, total pieces, price point, whatever you feel like sharing here, you can share for our listeners. And then we'll make them go to the drop site and get themselves, do their own damn research from there.
So I guess I would start with, the word that comes to mind is proud, right? That's what first comes to me. Ryan and I have done a lot of different work and, on some different things and some different projects and different art. And what I really see when we kind of put this whole project together, as I was just so proud primarily of Ryan and what he has done, right? But proud of our partnership also. And I see this artwork as really, really important in telling a story. And it means a lot. And it's interesting to come into this space and really represent that. And not just put out something, right? We're just not putting out an NFT to put out an NFT. And to the price point, Ryan answered that perfectly. We're coming in here to become part of the space and to represent what we're really here all about. Not so much about making the money on the first drop. That's not that important. We're looking to build something over time and to send a message and tell some stories. And each piece has its own story behind it. And we hope that resonates with different people. And certain people will attract to not only the art, but the story behind it. And that's so important. And it's so important to be able to connect with people. And that's really how we see kind of growing the community, growing relationships, growing friendships in this space, and taking one step at a time.
Love that. Love that. Leslie, you wanted to jump in?
Yeah. So I didn't want to take away from the focus of the podcast, but you mentioned something that I actually didn't know. And I think it would be a great way to lend support to the community and the listeners. And you mentioned that a big part of this is your journey with sobriety. And one of the things that I say all the time, and I think we all love about Web3, is that despite the fact that it's a digital world, I feel more connected to people than I have in a really long time, even post-pandemic. And I have closer relationships with my Web3 friends than I probably do in my in real life friends. I don't even actually know if I have any in real life friends anymore, to be completely honest, because I spend so much time with my internet friends. But my relationships are so much closer. And I've seen quite a few people actually in Web3 that are struggling with addiction, and they're reaching out to the community and getting support from others that either have been through the journey or on just a general support basis and trying to, remain positive and encouraged. So I wanted to at least flip it back to you if you want to talk about the journey to sobriety, and also if anybody is struggling with addiction, of any words of wisdom or advice or anything that you can share in terms of encouragement so that people can see that life is worth living.
Yeah, definitely. And I can attest to this. Like, there was a time like 3 years ago, I was super down before it happened. Like, I was very depressed. I didn't see my life going anywhere. I was like, I have a beautiful family, I have beautiful kids, beautiful wife, and just could not find beauty in my life. And, it really helps with, starting with a good friend. Like, my wife Maureen has been the best fighter for me. I mean, she's never stopped. She's changed her lifestyle to fit mine. It makes it easier when you have somebody fighting for you all the time that you can see. And listen, I don't even bring it up that much if it wasn't just such a big part of my journey, but I want to, the message would be, you don't have to be who you think you are. You get you get, if it's a bottle, if it's pills, if it's anything, you get stuck in this routine, and that's what it becomes. It becomes like, when you're addicted to something like that, you're on that level where it's starting to jeopardize everything in your life and your happiness and your just breathing. You really start, you really need it really helps to just, find some good people, circle the wagons, get a good support system. And as you start making these little baby steps, I'm from all Russians. Okay. My whole family's Russian. They all laughed at me when I said I was stopping drinking, because it's so programmed into our family. I mean, it's very programmed into us, and to break the cycle. And there's a guilt with it. There's every emotion that comes through with it, but like, getting to a point where you can honestly forgive yourself and be like, you know what, I probably did piss off a lot of people, and there are a bunch of people that are mad at me in life, but you know what, I have to accept that I've changed. And I have to accept that I can be, I have a lot more of my life to live. I'm 41 years old. I want this second half to be beautiful. And the only way to get there was to really put the bottle down and, and be truthful and harbor what I think I have inside of me. And what that is I think I have the potential to really bring worlds together and really change people's views. And I could never do that under the influence.
Thank you for sharing, Ryan. And, for anyone that's out there that is listening, right, I think there are, professionals that you can reach out to, make sure that you are reaching out on that side, but also just know, you're not alone. And I think that part of your story, you sharing, Ryan, is the representation, right? It's okay to not be okay, but recognizing that also you can break the cycle of what people put, the bucket they put you in, right? And for those that aren't watching on video, right, like Ryan is literally a tough, tattooed up dude that was just talking about the poems that he reads, his 4th grade award that he got for art, and his ability to get in touch with his emotions and find who he is in there, thanks to his amazing, spouse. And if that's not a beautiful reason to love the artists behind the art, I don't know what is. And I think this is just another example. And I think we never know who we impact or how we impact, right? And there's a beautiful subsection of this whole thing. And and I'll just kind of bring this to a close in this episode and saying that like even with the podcast, right, like there are plenty of days or plenty of times that we question, like, why do we keep doing this, or what is this doing for the bottom line, or are we reaching new people, or how can I make a business around this? But in many cases, the ripple effects are so far and so wide and in so many ways. And for me, like, that's what this is beautiful for. And so even if you're not an artist, even if you're not going to get NFTs, and maybe there's a creative side of you want to put your story out via a blog post, or you want to work with Chat GPT and be able to put out content that way, don't let anyone tell you that you can't. And as a fellow 41-year-old discovering something new on myself at 41 as well, I don't care how old you are, you can really break that cycle. You can find these new components in our lives, because the world needs you. The world needs every person that's listening to this, because the bad people doing bad things, the bullies, the haters, the negative, they're not stopping. We've learned that that's just going to keep going. But if we can empower great stories like this and connect great people with great people, I think that's truly how we make a difference in this world. So, Jeff and Ryan, thanks so much for coming on this journey. Excited to have your drop there on Nifty. Leslie has been a rock star at bringing all of this to life, and we'll put the link in the notes, and I'll just put this out there as well for everybody that's listening. Right, there's a lot of people that talk about wanting to make the world a better place. There's a lot of people that talk about wanting to support artists or support creatives or support vulnerability. But the people that are actually doing it, that are buying pieces, that are stepping up, promoting, celebrating, even if you can't afford it, I know money can be tight for people. You can retweet something, you can share something on your social, and that alone can make ripple effects that you have no idea are possible. So I challenge each and every listener here of this episode, especially, if you feel connected, you feel inclined, go grab yourself a piece, share this out on your social, connect this story, because a lot of people talk about NFTs and they talk about crypto bros, When Lambo, and other BS that the media likes to pay attention to. But you share this episode with them, their view on NFTs will never be the same. So for NFT 365, until next time, my friends, make it a great day. Cheers.